Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. Glad you could join us. Today, in part 2 on building better progressions, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to go about things beyond what we covered in part 1. All right, so let's just get right to it. And be sure to like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar along the way. Let's go. As you know, a song doesn't exist without a rhythm part, because the rhythm part is literally the foundational element of the song upon which you build to create the whole song. You know, the lyrics, drum parts, bass parts, whatever, melodies, and then guitar solos, of course. We have to include the guitar solo, right? And what we showed you in part 1 is that you can take your core progression and alter the nature of the chords, even add other chords in to create more texture, imply more complexity, and so make the progression something more than what it started out as. Hopefully better in the process, right? So here, what we're going to do is much the same thing, but then I'm going to also show you a little bit different way to look at how you play the new ideas. All right, so let's take a look at the first progression. All right, here is the first progression. It's a D, an F, a C, B flat, G minor, and A. Now, you can play this all downstrokes if you wish. So here's what it sounds like. Now, you can do a little bit of palm muting if you want. It's up to you how you want to do this. And you'll notice I'm using all bar chords. And so take a moment, work this out, get it smoothed out, find out what tempo you're playing at. And remember, this isn't about how fast you can play it, it's about how well you can play it, quality of execution. So play it at a nice, moderate tempo. If you can play at that, I played it around 80, 84. If you're a little slower, that's quite all right. Again, it's not about how fast. And then smooth it out, put it to the metronome to further regulate your tempo, because when you're playing all downstrokes, you can tend to either slow down or speed up as you go. This is very typical for people who are not really well versed in their rhythm skills. So you use the metronome to help stabilize your ability to play a part smooth, flowing, and at a consistent tempo. All right, once you've done that, go ahead and restart the video and we'll get to the next bit. All right, here is the progression with the alterations made. We've stayed with the same approach as previously, just altering the version of each chord, not going into the hardcore substitution stuff. So we stay with the D major. We turn the F into an F6. We turn the C into a C major 6. B flat into a B flat major 7, G minor to a G minor 7, A to an A7. And you can hear right away the changes in the flow of the sound of the progression. You'll notice also the tie that has been added in the first, second, third, and fifth measures between the and of 2 and 3. A tie, as you know, means you play the and of 2 and let it carry over through 3 and then begin playing again on the and of 3. Now, in playing this, we moved from all downstrokes to now a regular strum pattern. Let me play through this for you and show you what I'm talking about. All right, that's how it's supposed to sound. And this is what I want you to focus on. Learning these bits, get this new approach to the progression down, put it to a metronome, and play it smooth and flowing at a tempo you can make the changes smooth and flowing. Some of these chords are going to be a bit of a bear, and I understand that, but that's the whole idea of embracing chord changes you're not comfortable with, because they help you become a better player all around. Getting your fingers to do what they're told to do, not what they feel like doing. We've all gone through that, right? So take a few minutes and really work this out, and again, put it to the metronome and smooth it out. Then, once you've done that, press play. All right, now, as I mentioned in the secondary introduction, I want to take this a little further. Without changing any of the chords that we've now adopted in this new version of the progression, I want to bring your attention to different ways to play each of these chords. So you have your D, which you can also play like this with the 3 on the bottom, you know, D over F sharp. And then you just do this to play the F6, right? Now your C major 6, you can go to this, or you can go up here, and this is just basically play a G7 and then move everything over one string. And that is a C major 6. All right? Now, you can go to here, 4th string, and then lay your third finger across the first 3 strings 2 frets higher. That's a B flat major 7. Okay? Now, a G minor 7, there's a couple of ways to play this. You can play this voicing. This is a rootless version. Here's your root. That's the flat 3, so it's the first inversion. 5, flat 7, flat 3, and hope the bass player is playing the root when you do that. And then slide down, play a partial of an A7 with the flat 7 on the bottom, or move up to the root here on the 4th string and play the A7 that way. Now, again, you can go the D, and you can go to an F6 here. Remember, C7 over 1 string, that's an F6, right? And then you can flip to your C6 here, or you can play it here, like that, if you wish. It's like an A minor with the flat 3 on the bottom, the C. But this is your 6th tone, okay? And then you can go to your B flat, major 7 here, G minor 7, and A7. So you have different ways to go about this as you desire. The more versions of a given chord that you know, the better off you are, because now you have options, particularly if you're playing with 2 guitars. The one guitar can play straight chords, right? And the second guitar can play these cool extra voicings. So you have that option, all right? So Pause the video, go over this progression with the new chords that we showed you in the beginning, and then really begin to look at different ways to play the D, the F6, the C major 6, the B flat major 7, the G minor 7, and the A7. I've given you a few ideas here. So now, explore on your own to see how you can make this work. If you have a looper, go ahead and record the initial first progression into the looper and then play around with all these different voicings as a second guitar playing with it, right? Have some fun with this. Then press play when you're ready to continue. Just want to bounce in here for a moment and remind you, down in the description, you'll see a link to patreon.com Outsmart Your Guitar. Go on over there, check it out, subscribe, and become a patron. In so doing, you will be getting access to many lessons that are not featured here, expanded versions of some of the lessons that are featured here, and you'll get access to all the written material as well. Sound good? All right, let's get back to it. This next progression is really pretty straightforward, and you'll find out why shortly. So we're in 6/8, and we've got a G, if I turn up the volume, an E minor, an A minor, a C, and a D. Now you'll notice we're in first position here. So again, 6/8 is, got kind of that Celtic thing going on. Now, your G, you can play it like this if you want. I tend to go with this fingering. If you use this fingering, that's fine as well. It's up to you, again, whatever you learned, right? Okay, so the object here is to learn this and learn it well. Put it to a metronome after you've smoothed it out and really take ownership of this. All right? Then, after you've paused and done all that, restart the video and I'll show you what we're going to do. You'll notice in looking at the progression, first off, we haven't really changed a whole lot. We've changed the A minor to an A minor 7. And if you don't know how to do an A minor 7, just lift off your third finger and strum. A minor 7. And you can hear it's a little bit more open and so a little bit more ponderous. Then we have the C, of course. Now, instead of going to this D sus4, we're actually going to take the C and move it up 2 frets and play a little bit different version of a D sus4. More dissonance. You hear this? Not really a lot of dissonance, but here, dissonance. And we want that dissonance because that creates tension. All right? So, now you'll notice another thing we've done here is we're not strumming the progression anymore. We're actually arpeggiating the chords, playing them one note at a time. And so for the G and the E minor, we're bouncing off the low E string and, whoops, yeah, this. That stays the same throughout the whole progression on the second, third, and fourth strings. So here's what it sounds like. Now, for the A minor 7, we just changed the bass over to the 5th string. And we retain the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings as with the G and the E minor. For the C, we do the same thing. 5th string root, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th for the remainder. Oops. Now, the D sus4, we move up 2. And that has a lot more airiness, but also that tension versus this. And now the tension is here between the F sharp and the open G. They're just a half step apart. Sounds pretty wicked. Okay, so here, when we do it this way, we're picking them one right after the other, but there's space so that they don't quite have the same tension as if you strummed them. And we have it also adding in these notes to help further take away a little bit of that dissonance, but still retaining the tension. Now, one more thing I want to say here is that as you build a progression, you start with the core thing like we did before, and as a song matures, as it evolves, things about the song begin to change, or they begin to, in a way, ask for things to be changed. In this case, we've changed the feel by going to strictly 16th notes instead of, and we're doing those individually versus strumming 8ths and 16ths. So we're arpeggiating the chords, and this gives it a little bit more openness and airiness as well. And so we're changing the feel as a result. Another aspect is that you can go through the progression as it's written, but then you can also expand it a little bit by staying on the C for 2 cycles or 1 whole measure, and then moving up to the D sus4 the same way for a whole measure. And what this does is actually adds anticipation on top of the tension in preparation for, say, the chorus or an instrumental section. So this is what I'm saying. I'm going to go through 1 round of the progression as written, and then 1 round of the progression with the added extra C parts and expanded D sus4 parts. So you could hear by adding a little bit extra onto the C, expanding the C to last a little longer and expanding the D sus4 to last a little longer, we actually build a little tension in anticipation of what comes next. So you can take a progression that you've started with and you can modify it as part of the song, staying with the original idea, but then adding a little extra to it by, in this case, for example, expanding the C to a full measure and the D sus4 to a full measure to create a little anticipation, as I mentioned, in preparation for the next section of the tune. It's a great device, and you need to be ready and willing to understand that a progression does not have to remain static. It doesn't have to remain carved in, cast in stone, right? It can be modified as you need the progression to be modified to suit what you're trying to do with the song, okay? So pause the video, take some time, go over this, learn this part, get it down, put it to a metronome and get it smoothed out, then play the original progression as written and this now altered version of the progression as written, back and forth. Hear the differences between them in how they feel differently and how they even sound very different as well. And you'll begin to appreciate this idea that you can take a progression and do things to it that you might not otherwise have thought of. And it's acceptable. And it's even sometimes better because now the progression becomes more, right? Okay. When you're ready to continue after having done that for 5-10 minutes or so, press play. One of the best examples of what I was just talking about, I want you to go to YouTube and I want you to pull up the recording of Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones. In 1968, Jean-Luc Godot was allowed to go into the studio with the Rolling Stones and chronicle on film their studio sessions for this song that turned out to be Sympathy for the Devil. At the beginning, you hear the original idea of the song. It's a dirge. It's slow, it's ponderous, it has this heaviness to it. The words are still not quite clear. And Godot chronicles the progress of them taking this song from this dirge through different iterations and different approaches that slowly began to give life to the song and give it more energy and just a boastful, celebratory quality to it that became the Sympathy for the Devil song we all know. Okay? So check that out and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, how you can start with a progression, but it doesn't have to stay there. And you should really explore different ways of approaching how to play that progression, even maybe altering the progression, changing it, throwing parts of it out and putting in different parts to create a more complete progression that suits and serves the purposes that you're striving for that progression to support, right? For the melody and the lyrics and maybe the guitar solo or whatever solo is going to go over the progression, if that's the progression is going to have the solo over it, so that you really begin to massage the idea and let it change and try different things. Always experiment with what you're putting together to see if that original idea is the best approach or if it needs to become something else. I've done this myself. I've gone into the studio with a song. I had someone who wanted me to produce a song for them that I had written. And so we went into the studio and I started laying down tracks. And somewhere in the process, something happened and the song started to blossom. It became something so much beyond what I originally conceived the song to be. I had to modify one section and then I added some backing vocals for the chorus that actually just were amazing. It was a 3-part harmony. And then we used that same 3-part harmony to do a very traditional kind of gospel style ending. And the song turned out to be a really cool tune, way beyond what I had originally conceived it as, which was this quiet little acoustic number. Well, it became a full-blown, totally cool song. So I've experienced this, and I've also engaged in taking progressions from simple and doing things to them to see if I can make them more, right? That's the theme of this series, to make your progressions more, okay? So there will be a part 3, and when I have it up and ready to go, you'll get there and you'll see it and you'll experience and benefit from it too, right? Until then, I have a lot of other material for you to check out. Please do that. Thank you again for letting me spend this time with you. And until next time, take care and we'll see you soon.